What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Extra Innings Podcast. I am your host, Elijah Rodriguez. And today we have an interesting topic, I guess. Not going to be a super long episode. Going to be talking about one team in particular today and going off of what happened yesterday, which is shocking and funny and just on par with this club. We're going to be talking about the Mets. Now, the Mets have had a year, to say the least. They're 22-33. Took a fat loss yesterday to the Dodgers, along with some other losses in the process of that loss. And I'll have a break. I'm actually gonna have a breakdown of that whole situation. But if you didn't see it, if you don't know what I'm talking about, or why the Mets are in such high demand of conversation today, what is Jorge Lopez? I think is his name. Yeah, Jorge Lopez. Real quick, actually, before I go there, hold on a second. I don't want to watch this recap. I don't want to watch the damn recap. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I want to see something real quick because I'm curious. I'm very curious. Very, very curious. Let's see. Is there a way to get a, I know exactly where to look for this. But so Jorge Lopez, if you didn't see, guys, he tosses his glove. First gets tossed. Gets thrown out of the game. Hold on. So Lopez only threw one out. Yeah. One out. You give 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned runs, a walk, and a bomb. So if you didn't see it, Jorge Lopez goes in the game. Like I said, only threw 1 out, gave up a bomb, 2 earned runs. Not a good outing, obviously. And he, I guess, wanted a check swing call, didn't get the call, and proceeds to get ejected in an awful way. I know the guy at third, the umpire at third base, has been, I keep blanking on his name. He's been notorious, and if you want to check out the breakdown, I'll have the breakdown up later this morning. He's a hothead guy, and he's the same guy who threw out Adrian Beltre like forever ago for moving I think that's him. If not, it's a different guy, but this guy specifically, I've seen him. He's the guy that went toss happy not too long ago. He just started tossing all the Rangers guys out of the game. It's pretty funny. But he's obviously got a short temper, some issues. It looks like he's got some. I mean, he looks a little unhinged out there, especially in this situation. Tosses Jorge. Jorge's, doesn't even really argue the case. He didn't look like he wanted to be there, honestly, at all. I mean, and as the story kind of progresses, you'll kind of come to realize that. So he gets tossed, walks out, and then tosses his glove in the stands. Right, so he throws his glove. Number one, that's a bad look as it is. It just looks terrible. It's almost as bad as Trevor Bauer chunking the ball over center field when he got pulled out of the game that one time. So then proceeds to go to the locker room, and the game ends up getting worse. They lose 10-3, get their asses waxed. And in the post game, I don't quite, listen. So I'm all for constructive criticism. I'm all for being competitive and wanting to win, but there's a line you don't cross, I think. Obviously, this guy didn't give a fuck. He didn't care anymore. There wasn't even a question. You're playing with a bunch of guys, teammates. They're also in the same boat that you are. And obviously the Mets season has not been good. It's not been good. I'm watching it actually right now over here. The Mets season has not been good. It's actually been it's been pretty terrible. So he goes in there and they're like, hey, do you have any regrets throwing your glove or how this all went down? He goes, no, I would do it again. Honestly, I'm playing for the worst fucking team in Major League Baseball. So whatever, I don't care. And that right there not only sends it, like, my thing was when I saw that, I was like, there's no way they keep him on this roster, right? There's no way. Like, trade him. They DFA'd him. Obviously, right? You can't, there's no way he was going to say that and continue being a Met. There's just no way. Obviously you have to wait till the next day for that to happen. So they're supposed to DFA him today. Not quite sure what happens to him after that. I don't like that. Just okay. Look, so and here's my thing with that, and I'm strictly talking about Jorge Lopez and his career now. Before we get to more into the kind of the Mets woes here, right there. Let's say you do want, maybe are you just done with baseball? Like, because you just really hurt your stock as a clubhouse guy on so many levels on this one comment. And I get it, dude. I get it. Like you're upset. You're not been given the tools to win. You've been, managed the, Cohen, whoever you want to blame this on, has mismanaged this, and they've said it when they lost DeGrom, or when they lost DeGrom, and then they got rid of Scherzer, then they had Verlander. They lost all those guys. They said, yeah, we're not really going to be really competing until 2025 and 2026. So that's been known. That's been said. They said that last year. So I get the wanting to win and being competitive, and how that can sometimes, obviously didn't have a great start, came out, gave up a fucking bomb. I don't know if he had that headspace going into that, and that didn't really matter, obviously. Just a bad look, man. As if I'm on another club and they DFA him and they're like, hey, he's on the block, do I want this guy in my clubhouse? Like, not really. I mean, honestly, why am I going to invite that negativity, that bullshit into my team? I don't know anybody picks him up after this. I think this is career defining, honestly. Doesn't matter who it is. You could be playing for the worst team. You could be on the White Sox and say some shit like that. You just don't do it for the sake of your teammates, for the sake of you and your person and your, public image. Like, dude, you don't do that. Right. So that happened, right? Not only did that happen yesterday, they lost. Pete Alonso got drilled in the arm, and he's going to be out for a bit. I know they're waiting on an MRI or an X-ray or something like that. So he's out again. Then apparently Edwin Diaz. Okay, let's talk about Edwin. Okay, we got to talk about Edwin Diaz. Okay, so obviously, like, we're going to be talking all Mets today. Edwin Diaz has been nowhere to be found. Honestly, I mean, he was okay at the beginning of the year, and then these last couple outings have been not good, which feeds right into this storyline of the Mets of 2024. Obviously missed all of last year when he fucked up his leg at the WBC celebrating, guys. He was celebrating. I remember watching that. Fucks up his leg, misses the entire year. That started a whole spectacle of should guys be playing, because Jose Altuve got hurt in the WBC last year as well and didn't play for the first couple of months of the year. So there was a lot of people saying, oh, this is all the WBC. Guys shouldn't play. They have a season on the line. And honestly, that's a bunch of bullshit. Injuries can happen, whether they were happening on that field or whether they're happening in spring training. They were going to happen anyway. So, it is what it is on that point. But Edwin Diaz has been nowhere to be found. Let's actually pull up some of his stats. They're not good. I remember, he missed all of last year. Right when he kind of started the whole trumpet thing too, which is crazy. Like, he became this massive closer, and he was elite. Hurts his leg, doesn't play all of 2023, comes back in 2024 and is just a hollow shell, almost like an Alek Manoah type situation, except Alek Manoah was more control issues, I think, rather than just like getting absolutely hit around the ballpark. But let's look. But we will get to some shining lights, because there are some. But let's talk Edwin Diaz, right? So this is Edwin Diaz's stats as a closer. So he's a one-inning guy. 20 innings pitched, 20 games played. He's a one-inning guy. He's a closer. It's what he's been. Edwin Diaz, 5.40 ERA. He's had 5 saves on those 20 chances. Or 9 save opportunities. He's had 5. 18 hits, 14 runs, 12 of them earned, 5 home runs, 1 he hit a batter, and he's got 7 walks with 30 strikeouts. I mean, man, Craig Kimbrell had a really tough May, a little late April, early May. He was scuffling. I remember we talked about that. But this is bad, man. This is really bad. I mean, getting hit, blowing them saves over and over and over again. I remember they even said, there was a whole thing that happened where they were going to pull him out of that role, and they didn't really have a closer for a while. They were kind of just, piggybacking it, just sticking some guys, just kind of funneling it through to the end of the game with middle reliever guys. And then they thought, okay, like, we gave him some space. He's worked on some stuff. I remember it was like 10 games. He stepped away from that role and didn't do anything. He was just bullpenning, like no game action, just bullpen. And then they gave him a couple days ago, they gave him another chance. They're like, all right, let's roll this out again. Let's see if we can do this. They got the trumpets going, blah, blah, and he got shit on again. And it was just like, come on, man. So I don't know what's going to happen with Edwin Diaz. Honestly, everyone's like, oh, he's on the IL. Like, he wasn't really providing much value before that. So IL, no IL. I'm more shocked at the Pete Alonso. And if they lose him for a while, that's a blow. But the Edwin Diaz, you hadn't used him much in the last 2 weeks. him gone, does it do anything besides to give you a better opportunity with somebody else? Why they haven't put, Ottavino in that closing role, I don't know. Ottavino's been known to be an elite reliever in the league a long time, signed a massive contract with the Mets a while back. He's going to be there for a while. He's still there for a while. Why have we not tried Ottavino in that closing role? I don't know. They've kind of put a couple different pieces, but to each his own, I guess. So yeah, so not only are they riddled with injuries and all kinds of shit, man. It's just I don't know, man. I don't quite know what they do in this situation or what happens or what they have to do. They're obviously like, and this is where it gets interesting. Like, and I hear they don't want to compete. Obviously, they're going to try to do some stuff and get some stuff rolling for 2025. So this year was already, so they said, going to be a building year. They weren't expecting a lot, but the shining lights they do have, they still have Harrison Bader, great ball player. Like the offense is supposed to be good. Like they have good players. They're just not playing well together. That's really what it feels like. They're just not playing well together. Starling Marte, Brandon Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, Brett Beatty, JD Martinez, a great veteran, McNeil, guy who's shown that he's a decent ball player, Bader, Alvarez, like they have so many great players. They just DFA Joey Wendell. Joey Wendell wasn't really struggling. I don't know what's going on with the Joey Wendell thing. He just can't land in the club. I don't know. He was great with Tampa when they had their run back in 2020, when Tampa was really going after it. With when they had Glass now and all those guys when they were good. Joey Wendell was a big piece to that offense and that defense. Sad he can't find a job, man. It's kind of crazy. But back to my point. Brett Beatty, Marte, Nimmo, Lindor, Bader, like these are great ball players. These are great ball players. What is happening? Why can't they at least string something together? It's just damn. And what's funny is that it's like polar opposites. At City, you have it's on fire right now. You stay away from City Field, and then you go to New York, and you go to the Bronx, and the Bronx is having an absolute blast. So on both sides of New York City, you have one having a party and one having a funeral, basically. Like, it's awful. This is terrible. I don't know what is happening or what needs to happen. I don't know if this comes from management, where this conversation needs to be had, or who it needs to come from to kick these guys into some sort of gear, because it's not totally bad. Like, you have a great offense. Dude, Luis Severino, and this is what I've said a lot of times, man. Severino, I've been a fan of Luis Severino for a long time. He started out with New York. He was supposed to be their guy. I remember when they got Severino, it was like Severino's the guy. Opening day starter a couple years before, New York really had Cole, or they had a bunch of these guys. Severino was the guy, and he showed flashes of like a lot of great stuff, but just could never really fully put it together. And he just didn't pan out in the Bronx and got traded over to New York, to the Mets last year. Also on top of his struggles of performance, he had a lot of injuries. He was Tommy John, and then there was a bunch of different stuff he was dealing with that just he was never 100%. And that was kind of the story with Luis Severino in a Yankee uniform. Goes over to the Mets, and I don't know if he kind of figured it out. He's definitely lower in velo. He's like 93, 95. When he was at the Yankees, he was like 97, 99. He threw hard. Obviously, the injuries kind of set him back, but he's learned how to pitch, I think, because 3.22 ERA is not bad. 2-2. Obviously, the losses, I can't gauge any of these pitching records, right? Because they play like shit. So these guys can have hell outings and still get their shit rocked. So 2-2, 3.22 ERA, 10 games started, 58 innings, 42 hits, not bad. 50 strikeouts, leading the Mets with strikeouts. He is pitching really well. The opponents are batting $196. It's pretty damn good. Luis Severino, Sean Manaea is not awful either. 316. So they have two decent pitchers. Jose Quintana, 506. Terrible. Jose Budo, 308. And Badia. So it just keeps kind of getting worse. Obviously, Otto Mattavino, I know I just preached for him to be maybe thrown in the closer role a little bit. He hasn't been doing very well, 548. So he's also struggled. So they've got a couple bright pieces in those two starters. Manaea, which was a great pickup. He's been good in the past, showed a lot of flashes. Obviously, you go to New York, and I think things get dulled a bit. They get dumbed down. So Manaea and Severino, I think they're shining, but these 3 ERAs are not great, but they're better than what they've got, later here. Can't disagree there. So There are some bright spots. But in all honesty, guys, I don't quite know what happens here. The Mets are obviously struggling. They're on fire. Like, I don't. It's crazy, man. The Mets have, and this is, as we're tailing towards the end of this conversation, because I don't have a solution yet. I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper. This is all happening to me this morning. I got my phone blowing up with guys like, we got to talk about the Mets. You got to talk about the Mets. What's going on with the Mets? So I want to talk about the Mets, but kind of just give my fresh, honest thoughts without really just kind of looking at it from fresh eyes, not really digging into a lot of numbers. I'm digging into what I can here. I mean, they're gonna have to either if guys are here's the thing, guys. If you're unhappy in the clubhouse, if you got a bulk of dudes who are not happy in this clubhouse, who are really struggling to get things going, who are just not in the right headspace, like as a management group, you have to do something. Whether that's trade some guys away, whether that's make some sort of personnel adjustment, like that's got to happen at this point. I mean, I don't care if you're like, we're eyeing 2025, like we're going to make some big offseason trades. Like, you better make some in-season trades. Like, something's got to happen. You better go find some guys. You better get rid of some low performers. Like, in all honesty, I know I just preached for Ottavino to be a closing role, but hey, Ottavino, put him on the block. Diaz, poor performance, put him on the block. Somebody will buy him. Maybe he'll reinvent himself somewhere else. In all honesty, as sad as this is, like I said, I don't wish this, but like Severino, buy somebody else with him. He's showing a lot of value right now. Another guy. Nay, you could probably get another low level, maybe 2 low level starters that can put something together and kind of fill that role. Like, something has to happen here. Whether that's Alonso, a lot of people are thinking Alonso might hit the trade block. I don't think that's going to happen because I think he's going to be in New York for a long time. I don't see them getting rid of Alonso, but with this situation, anything is possible because something has to change. Like I said, whether that's trading some of these big guys away, maybe Marte, maybe Nimmo, something's got to go. And I think that once they make those changes and maybe make some personal changes and show that they're invested and that they care, and it's not just this guy, Jose Lopez, just, pretty much shouting at management that he doesn't fucking care and they suck. Like, that right there should be a sign. In all honesty, I hate that he did that. I think it was poor character. It was a poor decision to make in public. He's not wrong. There's a lot of frustrations in this clubhouse, and and obviously I think he was voicing for the majority. I think he said it because a lot of these guys have to feel this way because it cannot be fun going out and playing in New York in such a hard, hostile environment and getting your fucking asses waxed night in and night out, 22-33 with a team of this caliber. It's just not good, man. And it's sad. It's a far cry, man. Like, the Mets have not been great overall since like I've been alive. I mean, obviously they were back when Darryl Strawberry and all those guys they were studs. The Mets were good. Mike Piazza, all that. I'm not talking about that generation. I'm talking like this generation. The Mets have not been that great. I think the Mets were good. They had Johan Santana back in the day. They were okay. They were all right. Still didn't do a whole lot, back in the like late 2000s, like getting into the 2010s. And then the Mets blossomed. There was a point where they were really good, like in 2015 when they faced off against the Royals, when they had like prime Matt Harvey prior to Tommy John. And then even when he came back after Tommy John, he was good because he had Tommy John in 13, came back in 15 and had a great year. And then we all know the downfall of Matt Harvey after that. And all kind of started with that postseason loss when he pleaded to go back out in the ninth and then ended up losing the game, which was definitely an ego trip, I think. But Matt Harvey had a big ego, but most of the time he could keep it in check because he was fucking good, man. Matt Harvey. And the thing was, before that ninth inning blow, he pitched a hell of a game. Should have passed it on to the bullpen and been a team player, but that happens. But that year alone, that 14, 15, 16, the Mets were a force to be reckoned with. That's when DeGrom was pitching well. That's when Syndergaard was also at his prime, man. That guy, Thor, he was at his prime. You had Matz, who was kind of an afterthought, but still a great starter. Then you had, Matt Harvey and all that. That starting rotation was elite, right? Elite along with that offense. So the Mets have had the Coen brothers, whoever you want to blame this on. I don't know. I don't know who you put this on because it's not the guys in the clubhouse. Obviously performance, but these guys are just not playing well together. And as management, you have to see that, and something's got to change because this is brutal. And I think yesterday kind of like was like the bottle overflowing. It's like, we've had enough. They've had enough. Something has to happen, right? So I don't know. Like, I think that the best course of action for these guys right now in this moment is to start putting some guys up on the block and start making some movements and start changing up a little bit of the internal personnel because maybe that's the catalyst. Maybe you just need some different guys in there. Maybe some guys need to go reinvent themselves somewhere else, namely I know that obviously you can't. I don't know if they can really do this right now, but Edwin Diaz should go. Edwin Diaz should be the first on the road to go. Ottavino, another piece that probably is a veteran. He's a little bit older. He may get something for him, but he's another guy hasn't been performing well. Hit the road. Like some of these guys, you can get rid of and get some value for 100%. But at that point, do you sell the? At that point, do you set back your plans for 25, 26 to maybe 27, 28 because you sell the team? So it can go either way. You either sell the team or we work with what we got. We have an internal conversation. They did have an internal conversation. They had no press conferences yesterday. They went straight to a team meeting. Rightfully so after something like this happens with your clubhouse. So I don't know, guys. The Mets are in trouble. The Mets are in trouble, and I think once we hear back about the Alonso thing where he got drilled, I think we hear more about what's going to happen with Edwin Diaz if he can become himself again and be an elite presence in that bullpen. Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But there is no question the Mets are burning right now. I have no other way to say it. But thanks for listening, guys. Like kind of a somber episode. I know the Mets are interesting. I'm gonna have a breakdown of the whole thing with Luis Luis. Is that his name? Fucking Luis Lopez, or not Luis Lopez? Jeez, Jorge Lopez. Gonna have him talk about Severino and all this. So Jorge Lopez, we're gonna have a full breakdown of that whole thing and what happened there. So be sure to check that out on YouTube. It'll be up later this afternoon. But thanks for listening, guys. If you have any comments, any thoughts, anything, what do you think they should do with the Mets? Do you think they make internal trades? Do you think they go seek outside pieces? Do they trade some big pieces? Do they sell the team? Like I said, there's a lot that can happen here. There's a lot that the Coen brothers could negotiate. Do they push this whole 25-26 scenario? Do they push it to 27-28 and sell this team? Time will tell. Time will tell. But thanks for listening, guys. We're going to have a lot more content. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, follow us on all social platforms. Like, subscribe, follow on YouTube. We have daily content coming out. But again, thanks for listening. We're having a blast doing this, and we will catch you guys tomorrow.